My name is Emma. I live in a small town in the United States. I'm 30 years old, and for many years I believed I had a good life. I was married to John, who is 50. We have one daughter named Lily. She's 9 years old and goes to the local school near our house. Our home is small but quiet. We've lived here for almost a decade. John works at a furniture company in town. I used to work at a supermarket before Lily was born, but when she came into our lives, I decided to stay home. Now I do some small online work to help with money, but it isn't much. John pays most of the bills. I take care of the house, the cooking, and Lily's school needs. We don't have a perfect life, but I always thought we were doing okay. Over the last few months, things began to change. At first, it was small things. John came home later than usual. He told me work was very busy. I believed him. I said, please don't work too hard. But after some time, I noticed more. He didn't smile at me like before. He barely spoke at dinner. He looked tired, but not in the usual way. Something felt different. He started using his phone more often. He would keep it in his pocket even while walking around the house. He used to leave it on the table, but now he held it close all the time. He would laugh quietly while reading something, but when I asked what it was, he just said, "It's nothing." When I walked into the room, he sometimes quickly turned the screen off. One evening I asked him directly, "John, is everything okay? You don't seem the same." He replied, "It's just work. I have a lot on my mind." He didn't even look at me when he said it. Then he stood up and left the room. Another night he said he was going out to meet a friend from work. I asked who it was, and he said, "Someone you don't know." He left the house around 6 in the evening and came back at midnight. When I asked where he had been, he said, "Don't ask questions like that." He walked straight past me, took a shower, and went to bed. I sat alone on the sofa, feeling cold and confused. The next day, while he was at work and Lily was at school, I opened his laptop. I didn't want to be the kind of person who checks others' private things, but I couldn't stay silent anymore. I needed to know the truth. My hands were shaking as I looked through his emails. One name kept appearing again and again, Megan. There were many messages between John and Megan. In one email, he wrote, "You make me feel alive again. I love being around you." Another one said, "I wish I could see you every day." I closed the laptop and sat in silence. My heart felt like it was breaking into small pieces. I had always believed John loved me. I never thought he would love someone else. That night, I waited for him to come home. When he walked through the door, I told him, "I read your emails. I know about Megan." He looked at me without speaking. After a moment, he said, "You had no right to read those." I asked him, "Do you love her?" He looked away and said, "Yes." That one word hit me harder than anything else. My knees felt weak. I wanted to scream, but no sound came. He didn't say sorry. He didn't explain. He just sat down and started scrolling through his phone. I went to the kitchen, stood by the sink, and cried quietly so Lily wouldn't hear me. I couldn't believe this was happening to my life, to my family. The next morning, John left early without saying a word. I made breakfast for Lily and got her ready for school. She looked at me and asked, "Mom, are you okay?" I tried to smile and said, "Yes, sweetheart. I'm fine." But I wasn't. After dropping her at school, I checked our bank account. I saw many charges I didn't recognize: expensive restaurants, gift shops, even a hotel. I knew these were not for work. These were for Megan. He was spending our family money on another woman. That day, I called my sister Emma. I told her everything. She said, "Emma, come stay with me. You and Lily can stay here as long as you need." But I told her, I can't leave yet. Lily's school is here, and I have no job. I don't even know what to do. Emma said, "You're stronger than you think. You can't live like this forever." John started coming home later and later. He barely looked at me or Lily. He stopped having dinner with us. Sometimes he stayed out all night. When I asked where he had been, he said, "I don't want to talk about it." Then he would leave the room and close the door behind him. Lily noticed. She asked, "Why doesn't Dad eat with us anymore?" I didn't know how to answer her. One night, John came home very late. He was angry. I asked, "Where were you?" He said, "Stop asking questions. You always make problems." Then he walked past me and went to bed. I sat on the stairs and cried quietly. I felt invisible in my own home. The next day, I sat down with Lily. I didn't want to lie, but I also didn't want to hurt her too much. I said, "Dad is going through something difficult. He might stay away more often." Lily asked, "Is it my fault?" I hugged her tightly and said, "No, baby. This is not your fault. You did nothing wrong." A week later, John came home and told me he wanted to move out. He said, "I need time alone." I looked at him and said, "You already left us in your heart." He didn't reply. He packed a bag and walked out. He didn't say
goodbye
to Lily. That night, Lily sat by the window and watched the empty street. She didn't cry. She just sat there. Quiet. I sat beside her and said, "We still have each other. You and me. We're going to be okay." She leaned against me and closed her eyes. That was the moment I knew something had to change. I met John when I was only 22. At that time, I was working at a cafe in the center of town. I had just finished a short college course and didn't know what I wanted to do next. Life was simple. I lived with my parents, worked during the day, and spent time with my friends in the evening. I didn't think much about the future. One rainy afternoon, John came into the cafe. He looked different from the usual customers. He wore a nice coat, shiny shoes, and had a calm face. He looked much older than me, but something about him was kind. He asked for a coffee and sat near the window. He stayed there for almost an hour, just drinking slowly and watching the rain. The next day, he came again. This time he smiled and said, "Your coffee is the best in town." I laughed and said, "You came back for the coffee?" He replied, "I came back for the smile." I blushed. He was charming and polite. He didn't say too much, but his words felt warm. After that, he came often. Every few days, he sat in the same chair, always ordering the same drink. Sometimes we talked for a minute or two. One day, he left a small note with his bill. It said, "Would you like to have dinner with me sometime?" I felt nervous. I showed the note to my friend at the cafe. She said, "He seems nice, and he's respectful. Why not?" So I said yes. John took me to a quiet Italian restaurant. He talked about his job in a furniture company. He said he had been working there for many years. He told me he lived alone and had never married before. I was surprised, but I didn't ask too many questions. He listened to me talk about my dreams and my family. He didn't say much, but he paid attention. I felt special. After that night, we met more often. He brought me flowers. He picked me up from work. He always paid for everything. He said, "I want to take care of you." I started to fall in love. He made me feel safe. He didn't talk a lot, but he always showed up. That was enough for me. A few months later, he asked me to marry him. It happened suddenly. We were walking in the park. He looked at me and said, "I want to spend my life with you. Will you marry me?" I was shocked. We hadn't talked about marriage before. But in that moment, I felt lucky. I thought, he's older, he's calm, and he wants a family. So I said yes. My parents were surprised when I told them. My mom said, "He's much older than you, Emma. Are you sure?" But John came to our home and spoke to them kindly. He said he loved me and wanted a simple life. My parents agreed, but they were still unsure. I was in love, and I believed I knew best. We had a small wedding at a local hall. Only close friends and family came. I wore a simple white dress. John wore a gray suit. He smiled the whole time. I thought it was the happiest day of my life. After the wedding, I moved into his house. It was quiet and clean, just like him. I stopped working at the cafe. He said, "You don't need to work if you don't want to. I can take care of us." I agreed. I started cooking, cleaning, and taking care of the home. At first, everything felt perfect. John left for work early in the morning and came home in the evening. We had dinner together, watched TV, and talked a little before bed. He didn't like going out much. He didn't have many friends. I thought that was okay. I liked staying at home too. But slowly, I began to feel lonely. John was quiet most of the time. He didn't ask me about my day. He didn't talk about his feelings. I would speak, and he would only nod or say a few words. Sometimes I looked at him and felt like I was talking to a wall. He wasn't mean, but he wasn't present either. I told myself, maybe that's just how he is. I had never lived with anyone before, so I didn't know what was normal. 2 years after our wedding, I became pregnant with Lily. When I told John, he smiled a little and said, "That's good." I thought he would be more excited, but I tried not to worry. During my pregnancy, John didn't come with me to the doctor. He said he had too much work. He didn't ask me how I felt or help with the shopping. I went to appointments alone. I carried the heavy bags alone. My mom noticed and said, "Emma, you shouldn't do all this by yourself." I said, "John is busy. He's trying his best." But in my heart, I wanted him to be more present. I wanted him to care. After Lily was born, I stayed home full-time. I stopped thinking about work or hobbies. I spent my days feeding Lily, changing nappies, cleaning, and cooking. John still went to work as usual. When he came home, he didn't help with the baby. He would eat, sit on the sofa, and then go to bed. If Lily cried at night, I got up. Always me. Never him. One time I asked him to hold Lily while I took a shower. When I came back, he had placed her in the cot and was back on his phone. I said, "She needs your attention." He replied, "You're better with her than me." As the years passed, this became normal. I did everything. I became both mother and father in the house. John was there physically but not emotionally. He went to work, came home, and said little. I still hoped he loved us. I told myself, he's tired. He's not a bad person. But even back then, deep inside, I knew something was missing. Sometimes I saw him texting late at night. I asked who it was. He said it was someone from work. He never let me touch his phone. He changed his password one day without telling me. I felt strange, but I didn't argue. I was too tired. I had Lily to look after. I had bills to manage. I didn't have time for fights. Now, looking back, I understand that the distance started years ago. I just didn't want to see it. I believed things would get better. I believed he would come back to us. People don't always change. Sometimes they leave even before they walk out the door. After John left the house that day, the silence was louder than ever. Lily sat quietly near the window, waiting to see if he would return. But he didn't. There were no calls, no messages, not even a goodbye to his own daughter. I wanted to cry. But I stayed strong. I knew this time was different. He didn't just walk out of the house, he walked out of our lives. The next morning, I made breakfast for Lily. She looked tired and sad. She didn't eat much. I said, "You have school today, sweetheart." She asked me, "Is Dad coming back?" I didn't want to lie. I looked into her eyes and said, "I don't know. But no matter what happens, I'm here. And I will always be here." After she left for school, I sat on the sofa alone. I looked at the family photo on the wall. We looked happy in the picture. But pictures don't show the full truth. I was tired. Tired of feeling like I wasn't enough. Tired of trying to fix everything alone. And tired of waiting for love that was no longer there. John called 3 days later. I didn't want to answer, but I did. He asked, "How is Lily?" I said, "She's okay." Then he said, "I'll be by on the weekend to take my things." That was all. No sorry. No question about me. He had moved on. And now I needed to do the same. That night, I made a decision. I would not wait for John anymore. I would not let him control my emotions. I didn't need a man who left without thinking about the damage he caused. I needed to start over. I needed to stand up for myself, and for Lily. The next few weeks were hard. Lily cried at night. Sometimes she asked, "Did I do something wrong?" I always held her and said, "No. Never. This is not your fault." She missed her dad, but slowly, she began to understand. Children are smart. They feel everything. I looked for work every day. I applied to many places. One day, I got a call from a small bookshop in town. The owner needed help part-time. The pay wasn't much, but it was something. I accepted the job and started the next week. My mom agreed to pick Lily up from school and stay with her until I came home. The first day at work, I felt nervous. I hadn't worked outside the house in years. But when I stood behind the counter and helped the first customer, I smiled. I felt useful again. I felt like myself. Each day after work, I would walk home. I didn't take the bus. I liked walking. It gave me time to think. I thought about the past, about John, about everything I had been through. Sometimes I cried. Sometimes I just breathed. But with each step, I felt stronger. John came one weekend to take his things. He didn't say much. I didn't either. Lily stayed with my mom that day. I didn't want her to see him packing boxes. As he left, he said, "I hope you'll be okay." I looked at him and said, "I will. You don't need to worry about me anymore." He didn't reply. He just walked out. After he left, I sat down and felt a strange peace. The house felt lighter. There were no lies, no secrets, no cold silences. Just me, Lily, and the truth. With time, Lily started to smile more. She made new friends. She liked reading books with me before bed. Sometimes she would say, "Mom, you're strong." That made me smile. I didn't feel strong every day, but I tried my best. One evening, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea. The sky was orange, and the air was quiet. I thought about everything that had happened, the love, the pain, the betrayal. But I didn't feel sad anymore. I felt proud. I had faced something hard, and I didn't give up. I chose to move forward. I chose peace over pain. I chose myself. I don't know what John is doing now. Maybe he's still with Megan. Maybe not. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I learned I can live without someone who doesn't respect me. I can raise my daughter with love. I can rebuild my life, step by step. I still have hard days. Sometimes I feel tired. Sometimes the memories come back. But now I know that I am not weak. I am not broken. I am just human. And I'm healing. Life is different now, simple, honest, quiet, and most of all, free. If you enjoyed my story, please like and subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to share this story with your friends. Thank you very much for watching. Your host, Kashi.